Today is Friday, June 19th, 2026. This is Quick Start from CBN News. I'm Dan Andros. Vice President Vance joins CBN News. We'll have that top story and more on today's podcast, where we bring you news from a Christian perspective. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating. You can email us as well, quickstartpodcast@cbn.org. Joining me today to get through all the news of the day, CBN's Billy Hallowell. Billy, on the focus story, a Texas couple whose marriage was once on the brink of collapsing. Now they're helping other struggling spouses find hope.
Yeah, this is a really great story. It's Greg and Julie Alexander, founders of the Alexander House. Will talk about how they fixed their marriage and what they're doing to help others now.
All right, looking forward to the details there. Also, on the main thing, as I mentioned, Vice President Vance sat down exclusively with David Brody and explains why the Trump administration believes its Iran deal can work, and responds to critics who say the U.S. should have finished the job. That's coming up on the podcast. Right now, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Christian Solidarity International. We've partnered with them because of the work they're doing around the world to help persecuted Christians. And, I told you about Sudan last time, and that's an area that often is overlooked around the globe, but not overlooked by CSI. They've been there for more than 30 years. And they have these underground networks, which is really crazy when you think about it. And this is the sort of thing that when you contribute and when you help out at csi-usa.org/quickstart, that's where you go to do that. But that is where this funding is going towards. They're building underground networks of people to help rescue people from being enslaved, kidnapped, essentially, trafficked, in all different kinds of sort of human trafficking takes place in these highly persecuted areas. Well, they've built these networks to get people out of that. And it's mind-boggling how many people they've saved over the decades. More than 100,000 since 1995 have been liberated. And that's the kind of work you are supporting when you support CSI. So go to csi-usa.org/quickstart and you can help persecuted Christians in need. csi-usa.org/quickstart. All right, we are going to go to the news in 90 seconds now. And a professional baseball team in Pennsylvania canceled its own Pride Night game after several players refused to wear rainbow-themed jerseys. The New York Revolution of the Independent Atlantic League forfeited Thursday's game against the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs, saying the decision came after some players declined to wear jerseys featuring rainbow sleeves. In a sharply worded statement, the team said the players' actions were, quote, completely inconsistent, end quote, with its vision, and announced a $10,000 donation to Rainbow Rose Center as an apology to the LGBT supporters in their fan base. The club still planned to hold its Pride Night despite no game being played. 3 years after the Titan tragedy shocked the world, investigators say the disaster was preventable. A final report from Canada's TSB found that design flaws, poor testing, and weak oversight led to the catastrophic implosion of the Titan submersible in June 2023. Investigators said OceanGate failed to properly validate the strength of the vessel's carbon fiber hull and did not allow and follow standard engineering practices. Those are just some of today's top headlines. You can check out more stories over at cbnnews.com. And Billy, the Pride stuff continues here. Pretty crazy that a team, and I don't know what the Atlantic League is, I'm not sure what level of professional baseball that is, but in Pennsylvania, they had to cancel their own game over this. At what point do these companies realize that this is divisive? It's the same reason, Billy, that they won't ever get involved, meaning professional teams. You won't ever see them go, you know what, it's Life Night and we're going to support life in the womb. Why wouldn't they do that? The reason, if you would ask anybody, any one of these teams, is they'd say, well, it's too divisive. I don't know how they don't see that this is the same thing. You've got a large portion of the country who are Christians and are not going to take well to this celebration of sin. And so whatever side you fall on that, it's divisive because then you have a large portion of the country that is celebrating sin. But if your operating MO is, well, we don't want to do things that are divisive, then why would you do this? So It's quite something to watch this unfold still here in June.
Yeah. I mean, how about we just don't force people to do things they're uncomfortable with?
Right.
I do think people are bolder. They're stepping up more. They're standing up more. They're saying no. They're saying, hey, we don't want to take a part. We don't want to take part in that. I think the thing about the statement the team put out that if I were on the team would be most troubling was like, it almost felt like people were thrown under the bus, right? It was like, unfortunately, we had to cancel the game. Unfortunately,
Right.
This does not reflect our values. It's like, well, these are your team members. You may not agree with them and you may not agree with their values, but you put them in a position of having to make a decision that was very uncomfortable for them. And, why don't we do wear the Holy Cross night? How about we do that and see who wants to wear the cross? Do the Muslims want to wear the cross?
Right.
No, people shouldn't have to be forced to wear something they don't want to.
Yeah, 100% right, Billy. And that is the thing that is never considered in this. They're very worried about making people feel uncomfortable. How do they think the Christians feel on Pride Night? How do they think they feel? Everyone knows that Christians view this as sin. Same-sex couples and attraction, they don't even count it as marriage because we know how the Bible defines marriage. So how you can possibly say, well, we're so worried about making people feel uncomfortable, but not even consider how Christians feel in that. We talk about persecution and the violent persecution around the globe with CSI. That is what, unfortunately, a lot of Christians face in more violent places around the world. But this is a different kind of persecution that Christians face. It's that subtle sort of, you're bad, and here's the thing that we care about. And Christians get shoved under the rug. No one considers it's the same thing with the transgender bathrooms and all that. Nobody seems to care what the individuals who have standard Christian beliefs, how they feel. They don't care about that at all. And so it seems like very much a double standard, and it's very, very frustrating at times. But again, this is what's been happening every June. We'll see. It probably is a little less than the propaganda push we've seen in past years. So we'll see if this is a trend that continues, that maybe we will see less and less of this in each passing year as the ridiculousness of it becomes more and more evident. All right, we are going to go to the focus story now. And a Texas couple whose marriage was once on the brink of collapsing, they now are turned it around so much that they're helping others who are in similar situations, to helping them find hope. So tell me about this story here.
Yeah, this one is interesting. This is the Alexander House, and this is an organization out in Texas run by Greg and Julie Alexander. Now, these two, they're husband and wife, and about 26 years ago, they found themselves in a real challenge over their marriage. They had committed infidelity, both of them. They had time, and they really just wanted to throw in the towel on their marriage. They thought it was done. They were no longer interested in being together, and so they were taking steps towards separating. And so as they were considering separating, they found themselves being challenged by a faith leader. The couple is Catholic, and there was a visiting pastor at their church who started kind of asking them questions about their marriage and why they wanted to separate. And that really was sort of the beginning phase of their own journey. Like a lot of people, they were sort of faced with some options, right? Do you move forward or do you throw in the towel and end it all? And so that's where they found themselves a little under 3 decades ago, which is pretty amazing considering that now they're doing what they do, which is helping save marriages.
And so what changed Greg's viewpoint in his journey?
Yeah, so going back to that, that they were challenged by that pastor, and Greg said he started going back to scripture and saying, what does the Bible say about marriage, right? And so when he started reading what the Bible said about marriage and God's design, he and his wife realized, we have not been living this. Like, we have not been doing what we're supposed to be doing as a couple. We're not living biblically. Our marriage is not reflecting that. And so they made a commitment. He went and got Julie. He said, I took Julie by the hand. I recited a simple prayer. I said, Heavenly Father, we tried living our life and our marriage based upon the things we think we should do. It doesn't work. We've also tried living by the ways of the world, and that doesn't work. And we sincerely invite you into our lives to show us how you want us to live. And if you deliver us from this evil, we would commit the rest of our lives working in some kind of marriage or family ministry. So that's the promise. And he said, be careful what you pray for, because the two of them then went on to create the Alexander House. And now they've spent decades helping couples navigate the very same thing that they navigated. But the simple answer is they turned to the Lord, and he helped them and guided them towards personal restoration. And then he had them live out that promise to help other people.
And so what's next here in this journey with the Alexander House? You just went over the kind of origin story of it. And so here they are and they're thriving. So what's next?
Yes, they have this program called Marriage Disciples, and they sort of take these hurting couples, they pair them up with trained mentors who sort of walk through the process with them. So you get basically mentored by a couple who can help you, like a healthy couple, a Christian couple that's doing well. And, they turn you back to the biblical values of what marriage really is. Julie said every marriage can be saved. We believed wholeheartedly, but it has to be in the terms of inviting Jesus in, inviting God in, having the understanding of what is his plan. So they've got a big event coming up actually June 26th in Dallas, Texas. It's called First Comes Marriage. It's a gala. And that gala is basically going to be this big event aimed at raising money for their ministries. They can continue doing what they do. Some great people there. David Henry, who's an actor, a Disney actor, and Terry Fator, who's the winner of America's Got Talent. So there's going to be an evening of performance and all of that. But they're using this event to really build up support for the ministry. And they're going to continue on this mission that almost 3 decades ago they set out on.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great ministry. And I've seen amazing testimonies over the years from various places of, including in my own church, of married couples that have gone through infidelity issues. And you would think, man, at the time that there is no chance that this relationship is getting salvaged. And then God does something amazing through it. And in their particular case, get a whole ministry out of it. And obviously it doesn't always have to end with that. But it's so true that our society and our culture throws away marriage so quickly, way too quickly. We know about no-fault divorce and all that, but even Christians sometimes can just get on. And I'm not saying if there's violent situations and things like that, of course, there are times where you are biblically, it's okay biblically to dissolve that marriage, but it's very few. And a lot of times culture has sort of given people the green light and the okay to have that exit ramp out of the marriage. And it's amazing to watch what God can do when that forgiveness on both sides is authentic and genuine and godly forgiveness, to see what God can do in a restored relationship. And so I'm sure they've got dozens and dozens of stories like that, including their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes it's the simple things. We make a promise and God heals us. And we then say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to make sure that I help other people facing the same thing. And so I think, I'm inspired by that. And it makes me wonder what areas of ministry do I need to step up in and help other people? And I'm actually excited. I'll be able to report on this event because I'm going to be heading out there next week to go to this gala. I'm actually very excited about that. So we'll report back on the show and talk about what we see and experience there.
Yeah, definitely want to hear it. Definitely give us that update. Looking forward to that because this is the sort of thing we like to report on, because mainstream media certainly is not interested in something like this 99% of the time. So appreciate it. And right now we are going to head over to the main thing. And as I mentioned at the top, Vice President JD Vance sat down exclusively with our own David Brody and explained why the Trump administration believes its Iran deal can work, and also responded to critics who say the U.S. should have finished the job. We've got a few segments of that interview we're going to play for you here, and you can check out the full interview coming soon on the CBN News YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to that to get the full thing. But for now, here's a bit of that conversation with Vice President JD Vance on CBN.
I want to ask about the theological part of this. So, for example, Iran says they're reiterating, that they're not going to build a nuclear weapon. Okay, sure. Great. That's like a kind of a chronic thief signing a letter saying, I'm not going to steal again.
Sure.
I mean, so it kind of goes to the theological issues within Islam, specifically the way the regime sees it, taqiyya, which basically allows you to lie in righteousness, if you will. There is Hudaybiyah, which is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which Muhammad signed in the 6th century, which basically says that's a way for them to retool and to rearm. And this is part of their mindset. It's a theology. How concerning is that to you?
Well, I certainly hope that they're not lying, but it's not concerning to me because I don't really trust anybody. And I think this is one of the things the president has told us to do in this negotiation is don't trust any words that are written on paper, which is why I think, both the good and the bad of this entire negotiation, meaning I shouldn't say the bad. The good things for America and also the good things for Iran fundamentally only happen through action. And that's what we have set this up to do. So if they do things, then they get things. If they don't do anything, then they don't get any of the benefits of the bargain. I am sure that there are people within their system who are not telling us exactly what's on their mind. That's just the way that these things go. But that's why the president has told us, don't reward good words, reward good conduct if that happens. And if not, we don't, no skin off our back.
Let's go through this real quick, this scenario. So let's say they play nice for 2+ years when President Trump's in office. And therefore they get some of those assets frozen and some of the sanctions are lifted and yada, yada. And even into the $300 billion fund that we're talking about, the Gulf Reconstruction Fund. So that all happens. But then President Trump leaves the scene. And then some sort of air quote Neville Chamberlain on the Democrat side, or who knows what's going to happen on the Republican side, they're just rearming, retooling, and they'll wait it out. And it's 3-4 years down the road, and they still have their nuclear program intact because they were able to access some of that money.
So the nuclear program, the thing about that is we're going to be able to see if they're rebuilding. Now, you're absolutely right that if a future Democratic administration let Iran rebuild their nuclear program, there's nothing we can do about that here and now. What we can do here and now is destroy their program, which we've done, and make it impossible for them to rebuild it without it becoming obvious to the inspectors and to the entire international community. The other thing that this deal does, which I think is a really underappreciated part of the president's genius of the way that he set it up, is that, again, if Iran complies, this transforms the Gulf Arab relationship with Iran. If you go back to the original Obama nuclear deal of 2015, the Gulf Arab countries, like the United Arab Emirates, been a great ally, the Saudis and so forth, they hated the deal because they thought that it empowered the Iranians to behave poorly. They actually really like this deal because they see it as giving them leverage over the Iranians. This is really a sort of regional framework to take Israel, our Gulf Arab partners, to give them the ability to manage the Iran problem. And so while I can't trust a future Democratic administration, I actually do trust our regional allies to be able to exert that pressure on Iran. So we're setting this up in a way that it really is durable. You can never predict the future. You can never predict what a future Democratic president might do. But this is as good as it could be, given that we can't control what President AOC, God forbid, would do in the future.
Do you feel that Israel is on the side here of righteousness? Look, ultimately, there's always a good versus evil battle going on. A lot of folks see Israel as the bad guy here, obviously, especially younger, not just progressives, younger conservatives, younger evangelicals. So how do you see Israel in this in terms of being on the right side here or the wrong side?
Yeah, I think it's important to say, look, Israel's been a great partner through this, and we've got a lot of shared interests. If you go back to the early 2000s, when we were first confronting the Islamist radicalism and terrorism problem, obviously we actually had some very important Gulf allies, but the Israelis have been important partners. And then even going back before that, there were other things that we were working on together. What I think is also true is that sometimes the United States and Israel are going to have disagreements. And I think that what some people say is, well, because the United States and Israel have disagreements, somehow Israel's bad, the United States is good, or vice versa. Sometimes you see people in Israel, even after all the president of the United States has done for that region, they're attacking the president because, they don't like this deal, even though a lot of them don't know what's in the deal. I think that what is true here is if you go back to, Eisenhower and General Montgomery in World War II, people can work together, have shared interests, but also have disagreements from time to time. I really feel like, David, when the people of Israel get to know this deal and hopefully trust what the president is able to accomplish for the region, they're going to see this is good for the people of Israel. It's a great country, amazing people. We have a lot of friends who live there. It's going to be good for the people of Israel. It's going to be good for the whole region.
But Israel wants to make sure that they don't want to get out of southern Lebanon, obviously. And we're hearing that Iran says there's not going to be any deal if Israel doesn't get out of southern Lebanon.
So first of all, the deal doesn't talk about Israel getting out of southern Lebanon or not. But I actually think that Israel would love to get out of southern Lebanon so long as the Hezbollah threat was gone. What they're saying is they're not going to get out of southern Lebanon until they can protect their people. We make very clear, Israel is allowed the right of self-defense. Nobody's going to tell another government they're not allowed to defend their people. But we are going to work aggressively, diplomatically on this peace process to make the people of Lebanon want sovereignty and safety. The people of Israel want sovereignty and safety. That's part of the work of diplomacy. And frankly, because the Iranian regime is so weak, we've got a better opportunity to work on that problem successfully than we've had in a very long time.
All right, David, appreciate that. Very interesting to have the Vice President of the United States on CBN. Again, make sure you're subscribed to the CBN News YouTube channel so you can catch that full interview. All right, that's going to leave us with time on the podcast today for one last thing.
We've got Proverbs 18:22. He who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. You know, we can trust God. If you're single, you're looking for somebody, you can trust him and pray that he'll bring the right person there. And it truly is a gift.
Amen. Amen. Great spot to leave it here this week on the Quick Start podcast. And make sure you are getting on over to cbnnews.com. A lot of great news from a Christian perspective over there. Also, faithwire.com. Some exciting news coming up for Faithwire, by the way. Stay tuned to that. If you haven't subscribed to the Faithwire email newsletter, do that right now. I got some fun stuff coming up for you. All right, God bless. Have a great weekend. See you back here next week.